Welcome. I am here today to talk about what is probably the most overused term in the tech industry, innovation. What I hope to do is bring a little new context to that, talking about it within the idea of certainty, and hopefully by the end of this talk that will make some sense. Indeed is a search engine for jobs, and our mission is we help people get jobs. And what I'm going to talk about is, in particular, how we use data to help people get jobs. So at Indeed, we are very fortunate. We have lots and lots of data. When someone, for example, does a search like this for a software engineer in London, we will record a huge amount of information about this search. What the query itself was, what the location was, how many jobs we showed, how many jobs were clicked on, in what positions, whether the user was logged in, when we last saw that user. In fact, on every search, we capture today about 386 different individual pieces of information. And this is a collection of information that represents this event, job search. And job search is one of 860 different events that we capture information on. Everything from a job being clicked on to a job being posted, a resume contact, as well as systems level information, a server failover happening, an email being sent. And when you put that all together, we have today on Indeed 16 million jobs all over the world. Every single month, 200 million job seekers come to Indeed to search for jobs. And on average, they do about 2 billion searches every single month. So we generate about 25 terabytes of data every single day. And to put that in a little context, in the States, we like to use our Library of Congress as a sort of unit of measure of data. The Library of Congress is essentially our national archive for books. There are 16 million volumes in the Library of Congress. If you took all the text from all of the books and digitize them, it would be roughly 36 terabytes of raw data. So at 25 terabytes a day, we're essentially filling the Library of Congress with job search data every day and a half. Having a lot of data is cool, but really what matters is what we do with it. And we have a very strong philosophy in measuring everything that we do. And we believe that if we measure something, we can improve it. And just as important is the corollary to that, which is that if we can't measure something, then we can't improve it. So I'm going to give an example of how we use data to improve the experience of searching for jobs on Indeed. And the example is searching for jobs in Stamford, Connecticut. For those of you that don't know, Stamford is a city on the east coast of the United States. On this map here, it's right at the center. The landmass to the left is New York State, the north part is Connecticut, and that little island on the bottom is Long Island, which is a part of New York as well. So Stamford is directly across this Long Island Sound from Long Island. And when you do a search on Indeed, the default for us is that we'll show all the jobs that match within a 25-mile radius, or outside of the U.S., 25 kilometers. And so if you look at this, you can probably spot right away what the problem is searching for jobs in Stamford, which is that a lot of the jobs within that 25-mile radius happen to sit in Long Island. There is no ferry that takes you across, so it's probably an inconvenient place for a job seeker who might be looking for jobs in Stamford. So how can we figure out what is a good set of jobs to show and what is a less good set of jobs? Well, if we look at the data and compare two very specific locations, so if we look to the east over here at Fairfield, Connecticut, and to the south in Melville, New York. So those are two cities that are both exactly 11 miles away from Stamford. But our intuition is that one is going to be more relevant than the other. So what do we see in the data that can support that? The simplest way for us to look at the relevance of a job is what is the click-through rate. So when someone does a search for a job in Stamford, when we look at all the jobs in Stamford on average, how likely are they to be clicked on every time they're shown? And the answer is 4.7% of the time. So 1 out of every 20 times we show a job in Stamford, that job will receive a click. Now, if you think about that in the terms of how they're shown, we return between 10 and 20 results for every search. So this is actually a very high click-through rate. This means that almost on every search, someone's going to click on a job in Stanford when they're searching for Stanford. If we compare that to Fairfield, the click-through rate on average for jobs in Fairfield when someone searches in Stanford is 3.6%. So it's slightly less relevant, it's about 20% less, but it's still fairly strong correlation. In Melville, however, it's less than 1%. So when someone searches in Stanford, they are 5 times as likely to click on a job that's actually in Stanford than that's in Melville. And so this gives us an idea of how we might understand the relevance of location in search. So if we take a step back and instead of cherry-picking a couple locations, let's look at all the jobs that we ever return when someone does a search in Stanford and sort them by click-through rate. So we have the most relevant jobs based on their click-through rate at the top. And if we just look at the top 10% of them and plot them here, a picture emerges. This visualization basically tells us that along this corridor here, and it happens to be that there's a highway, Interstate 95, that the jobs that happen to sit on or near I-95 are actually preferable to job seekers. These are the ones that they are most likely to click on. And if you actually look down on the bottom left, there's a small dot there outside of that circle. It is possible for a job seeker to expand that radius and to look outside, and that one dot is New York City. And it turns out that there is a very convenient 1-hour train that goes directly from New York to Stanford, so lots of people commute there. Now, if we take that same list of all of the jobs and sort it the other way, so we're looking at the bottom 10% of jobs with the lowest click-through rate, a different picture emerges. So job seekers are telling us very, very clearly that, first of all of Long Island is out. Definitely not a convenient commute. No one is really looking there. The other is that if you look across the western side, there's this cluster, and they actually happen to follow along. There's another highway there, Interstate 684. And it turns out that the interchange between I-95 and 684 is always congested. And again, by their clicks, job seekers are telling us that they're not interested in commuting west of 684. So when you put the two of these together, what we get is essentially a pattern that we can apply as an algorithm. When someone does a search for jobs in Stamford, Connecticut, we can take all the jobs that might match, and for the ones that fall along the blue route, we can boost those in terms of the ranking of the search results. So we'll show those higher up and more prominently. We take any of the jobs that happen to fall in the orange location, and we will deboost them. We'll show them lower down. And so we can improve the relevance of the results that we're showing to job seekers based on this location information. So this is nice for people who happen to be in Stanford, but the real power is that we can do this in 60 countries in more than 90,000 cities around the world. And the beauty is we don't have to know anything at all about geography. We don't have to know where there are bodies of water, where there are mountains. We don't have to know where there is convenient public transportation. Job seekers tell us this with their own behavior, and by using that data, we can improve our product. So to get back to innovation, there's multiple forms that innovation can take, and what I really mean is just introducing new value. One example is Indeed Prime. This is a new product of ours that we launched last year. This is actually why we're here at the summit. We are sponsoring. There are folks running around if anyone is interested who wants to talk to our Prime team. But what Indeed Prime came out of one form of innovation, which is we are in the employment business, but we're also an employer. And a lot of the problems that our customers face are problems that we face, and sometimes we sit around and say, hey, this is frustrating, this can be better. Can we build something that will make it better? And Indeed Prime is specifically targeted at helping something that probably is relevant to everyone in this room, which is hiring technical talent. As everyone knows, I don't have to go into all the statistics, pretty much the hardest positions to fill everywhere around the world are very, very talented people in tech. So we sat down and thought about what are the problems, what are the things that make this so difficult, and what would be a magical solution to all that? And so basically we said, what if we had resume search where every single person in the search was super highly qualified, where every single person in the search was actively looking and was going to be incredibly responsive and ready to talk to a recruiter right now? What if for every single person we knew exactly where they would be open to relocation, and what if we knew exactly what salary they were looking for? So we built that, and it worked, and it's actually been really successful, and we've hired a ton of people, and lots of other people have hired a ton of people. So we're here launching it in the Irish market right now. But that is an example of something that when you tell the story at the end, it's sort of obvious. If you magically solve a whole bunch of problems and you build something that works, then you will have a successful product. For every Indeed Prime that we have built, there are at least 10 other products that we have come up with equally brilliant ideas and gone and built them and have not been able to build a successful business around them, because there's a lot more that's required to build a successful business than just having a good idea. So what this really boils down to for us is how we approach testing and experimentation. We are deeply committed to testing and measuring absolutely everything we do. Every single new product launch, but also every single feature of an existing product, every single algorithmic change, every single design change, and yes, every single word of text on every single button. And not only like this, but in 60 countries in 28 different languages. Today on Indeed, just to give it a little bit of scale, we have more than 500 A/B experiments running across the entire site today. And having had this deep commitment to testing and experimentation and data for over a decade now, we've actually collected a lot of data on our experiments themselves. And one of the things that has been deep in terms of informing how we think about building products is that 70% of the experiments that we run fail. And by fail, what I mean is they fail to produce positive results. So they're either neutral or, in actually most cases, they're actually producing negative results. And this has brought a sort of forced humility, because what it really means is that most of our ideas are bad. If I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of other people, and we all like to think that we're smart, and we all like to think that we're experienced, if my lips are moving and I'm suggesting something, the odds are greater than 50% that it's a bad idea. Before any of you get too smug, it means that most of your ideas are bad too. But what that really means is that we don't know what is best. And kind of like the example that I gave with search in Stanford, there was some intuition there, but until we actually test something, until we actually see, there's nobody that I've ever met who is smart enough to anticipate what's going to work for 200 million people in 60 countries around the world. So this has become our default to thinking about new products, new features, how we want to innovate, is to start with this question of, I don't know, let's test it. And to me, I don't know are the three most powerful words in all of business, that if I can approach a problem with the humility of, sounds like a good idea, let's find out, I don't know, it opens up a huge number of possibilities. So we, after having done this for many years and having been really clear on the fact that most of our ideas are not going to work, what we really want to do is dramatically expand the number of experiments that we can run on a very large scale. And so we introduced a program back in the summer of 2015 called Indeed University to really try to systematize innovation within the company. And I'm going to introduce Indeed University with a short video here.
So when I first heard about the Indeed University as a concept, I was kind of like suspicious, and I don't know what it will be. As the company continues to grow, the question that we constantly ask ourselves is, how do we continue to innovate? And so Indeed University came out of that. We're taking these 50 new college grads, and they're bringing them all from the different offices here to Austin. Basically, we're going to organize ourselves into teams and come up with new product ideas and spend the summer kind of building those products. We feel like we have this unique opportunity to give them complete freedom to come up with new ideas.
They get to deploy code to production their first week. They're working on real issues. They don't go through a lot of training. They don't sit for months before they actually contribute something to production.
I think very few people are afforded the opportunity to kind of come in and immediately, they give you the keys. They say, here are all the accounts, go wild and take risks. Try not to delete our site from Google. That'd be bad.
So essentially what we're doing is we are launching a dozen new startups within Indeed.
I'm super excited to see what happens because it's kind of like a 3-month hackathon.
When we went in, we really didn't know how things were going to go, and we were setting ourselves up for potentially something where there would just be no ideas at all. It's entirely possible that 50 new hires who've never really thought about HR as a business would come in and would really have nothing at all to add.
I went to Calvin College, which is a small liberal arts school in Michigan. In terms of like knowing how to go from there to a career that you're interested in is, I think, tough. It's mostly I just want to help people who are like me.
Hi, our product name is Exceptional. The problem is that qualified, non-traditional candidates get filtered out of the interview process before anyone even looks at their resume.
Like, I was definitely not convinced that it was like a good idea, but I was 100% convinced that it was like important enough that it was something I wanted to try.
Our team product is called Microjobs. So basically it is kind of like a platform to connect with the user who want to post some small jobs on our website. Small jobs like house cleaning or pet sitting or stuff like that, and also the user who want to do some small jobs.
So after you log in with Facebook, the button will disappear and then it will show two options, whether you would like to post a microjob or take a microjob. We started to think about some really popular startup company like Uber and Airbnb.
All of these kind of companies have one really same idea, which is to connect like both sides as an individual user together.
The idea we were interested in is that for a lot of these jobs, like cooks, waiters and waitresses, working at a clothing store, things like that, it's more likely that someone who would want that job would want something as nearby as possible. So we figured the location of the job is much more important. Well, this is jobs nearby. You have all these now hiring signs in store windows. The idea is that a lot of these stores don't have jobs online. What we wanted to figure out is if we gathered enough of them in a concentrated area, if this actually worked and if anyone actually got a job because of our application, what I'm doing for a job has the potential to actually help other people do what they need to do, make it easier for them to get a job, and in the particular case of my project, help people find jobs that wouldn't previously have been online.
The 11 ideas that this group landed on are all really interesting, and they represent a range of problems for job seekers, for employers, and in some cases, the first set of problems that Indeed is really thinking about tackling outside of just the pure hiring process.
So in September, October of 2015, we wrapped up the first Indeed University, and actually, much to my surprise, 5 of these 11 new startups that we launched within the company actually graduated into new products. And what that meant was that during the summer, they demonstrated through testing, experimentation, and data that there was something worth further investment. And to be honest, going into the experiment, my goal was that there might be one that was vaguely successful enough that we could say, hey, this was great, because it really was an opportunity for these new students to learn how to think on their own and learn how to be responsible for basically delivering on results. Of these 5, the one that I actually want to spend the rest of the time talking about that to me is the most exciting is that last one that Nick presented called Jobs Nearby. And Jobs Nearby, the idea that this team had, so we had 3 22-year-olds who had been at the company a week. And they basically said, there's a whole bunch of jobs, there's millions of jobs that are not online anywhere, and we can only help people find jobs that are already online. So what can we do? There's millions of help wanted signs, now hiring signs all over the world. And they were smart enough at least to realize that there was a huge problem and there are 2 sides to it, and that tackling the whole thing at once during the summer was maybe too much. So they scoped it down to, let's start with the assumption that we can get the jobs. Are job seekers interested in them? So what they did was they hopped on their bikes and they rode all over Austin in the summer, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very, very hot in the summer, but they went around and took pictures of all the signs that they could possibly find. And then they built an app that put all those jobs on a map. And they let job seekers come and explore the map and look at these jobs. For every single one, there was a picture of the now hiring sign, a picture of the store itself. They also put in a map for the location and the telephone number so people could actually go ahead and contact the place and try to apply for a job. And what they measured was what was the engagement rate. So when someone looked at one of these jobs, how likely were they to click the button to actually get directions in the map or click the button to make a phone call. And it turns out what they found was really exciting. The engagement rate was triple what the average engagement rate for an average job seeker on Indeed with a typical job was. And so that suggested empirically that there was something there that job seekers would be excited about. So at the end of Indeed University, then it was left with this other question. Okay, how are we going to get all of the jobs in the world that are offline onto Indeed? We certainly can't send the engineering team on bikes into every city around the world to snap their own pictures. So the question was, how can we crowdsource this? So this team, these 3 engineers, they happened to be destined for our San Francisco office. So they came back to San Francisco, gave them a product manager, a little extra support, and they sat down and came up with an idea, which is this app called JobSpotter. So JobSpotter, which launched in April of last year, very simple concept. It is a mobile app that when you're walking down the street, anyone who sees a help wanted sign or now hiring sign can snap a picture of the sign, snap a picture of the business, push submit, and you've just posted a job to Indeed. So we have a moderation process, both human and machines, that can determine if this is a new and unique position that we haven't seen before, that it's actually a picture of a sign and not a selfie. And what we do is for every job that is verified, the person who posted it earns 50 points. Those points at the end of the month turn into cash on Amazon.com, so they get Amazon.com gift cards, 50 cents for every valid photo that they've submitted. We have a way for people who are posting them to track their submissions, to see where they are, to see how many points they've earned. And then there's a little gamification, so there's a leaderboard where every month the top 3 spots get $300, $150, and $50 or euros. If you look at this shot here, actually, so this is 10 days left in the month, so 20 days into a month, and the top person on the leaderboard here has 41,000 points. So that person has submitted 800 jobs themselves this month alone in the first 20 days. Over the last 6 months, the top 10 submitters have done more than 1,000 jobs each every month. We have some basic technology that extracts from each of the images the GPS coordinates that allow us to then put the job on a map. We can then match with a location database to match it up to get the rest of the metadata about a job. We use OCR to extract from the image any of the text that we can recognize, a web address, an email address, a telephone number. And then instead of a separate app, these jobs now get posted directly to Indeed, and they get posted as a help wanted job. It specifies specifically apply in person because we're not trying to take people away from walking into the store. We want them to walk into the store to apply. And then each of these jobs gets its own page on Indeed. So there's a picture of the help wanted sign. There's a picture of the front of the store. There's a map with a link to get directions from within the app, telephone number, and you can call directly. We've just launched actually in the UK last month as well. Since we launched in April, we've had more than 140,000 people submit 800,000 new jobs to Indeed. And because these jobs are constantly turning over today, right now, there's about 50,000 jobs in 4,000 cities. And these are all jobs that we didn't have before. So the other exciting thing is they confirmed the fact that we could now get people to help us post these jobs, but job seekers love these jobs, and frankly, even more than we thought they did before. It is today, the JobSpotter jobs are the number 4 most popular, most clicked source of jobs in the world, and we're actually only live today in the US, Australia, and the UK. It's the number 2 most popular source of jobs in the US. The other amazing thing that's happened is that when someone does a search and lands on one of these jobs and recognizes that the job title is help wanted, and this is not something we anticipated, people have now gone and started searching specifically for help wanted jobs. And very consistently, historically, for the last decade, the search volume for the term help wanted is very consistent and very, very low. In the 6 months after launching in April, searches for the term help wanted went up by 15x in desktop and 20x on mobile. So JobSpotter has essentially enabled a change in job seeker behavior just by taking a whole new category of jobs that were never available online before and bringing them online. So this is, to me, truly amazing and mostly interesting for two big reasons, and I'll wrap up with these two observations. The first is that aggregating jobs was the first thing that Indeed ever did. Going out to the world and finding all the jobs we could find and bringing them to one place, that was the first thing we did. It's the core of our business. And here we are 12 years later, and 3 22-year-olds who knew nothing about our business and had never looked for a job in their life other than being recruited out of college as computer science undergrads. They came up with an idea that was the biggest new innovation in aggregating jobs in a decade. And what that says really clearly is that we can always do more. Even the things that are core to our business, the first idea that anyone ever had, it's very easy to get distracted by all the shiny new objects. The core of the business, there's always, always more that we can do there. The second one, and this is actually the most important and the most exciting thing to me, is that when they came and pitched the idea, I told them it was a dumb idea and it wouldn't work. And part of that was because it actually, while it was a new idea to them, it wasn't new to Indeed. There were a lot of people who had suggested this in the past. And we had a bunch of really smart people with MBAs who did a whole bunch of research and built very complicated spreadsheet models and essentially conclusively proved that this could not work. We could not scalably actually get all of these jobs onto Indeed. So the smartest thing about how we set up Indeed University, though, was that it wasn't my call about which projects actually happened and which ones didn't. We set it up so the teams brainstormed, they pitched, and the only thing required for funding for a project was to convince 2 other people to spend the summer working with you. So we gave feedback, we shared ideas, and when I shared those ideas, they said, thank you for your thoughts, and they went ahead and did this anyway. And what that really has done to underscore the most important lesson for us is that the biggest barrier, the greatest enemy to innovation is certainty. That any company that does anything well, the biggest trap we can fall into is to think that we're smart, to think that we've got stuff figured out, and to think especially that because we've talked about something or thought about something before, that idea is not valid. And if there's anything that I would want to leave you with and implore you to consider is that, we're all probably, everyone that's sitting in this room is probably at one point or another the smartest person in the room. You're paid to be smart. But it's entirely possible that the smartest thing that we can do is actually to embrace dumb a little bit and to not say no to these new ideas, and that most of the great things that have come out of our business in the last decade have been those ideas that have come out of left field. Anything, frankly, that's obvious, has been done before, and it's those things that are not so obvious where the real opportunity comes. So, thank you very much.